They told you to be kind, to be polite, to never raise your voice, to never push too hard, to wait your turn. But let me ask you something. How many empires were built by people who waited? The truth is harsh, and most people can't handle it. Power doesn't listen to the soft. It doesn't bend for the polite. Power bows only to those bold enough to take it. Being ruthless isn't about being cruel. It's about being clear, crystal clear on what you want, and absolutely unwilling to let anyone, anything, or any fear stand in your way. In every aspect of life, whether it's business, politics, war, or personal growth, there's one brutal truth that never changes. Power doesn't care what you meant to do. It only responds to what you actually do. You might have good intentions. You might want to help others, build something great, or change the world. But if you don't turn those intentions into action, the world moves on without you. Worse, someone else, who acted while you hesitated, takes the space that could have been yours. Intentions live in the shadows. They're internal, they're silent, they feel good to us, because they offer the illusion of progress. We think, we plan, we dream, and it comforts us. But comfort is not what builds power. Power isn't polite. It doesn't sit and wait for you to feel ready. It responds to force, to movement, and to impact. Action is what breaks through noise. Action is what shifts the balance of influence. It's what people see, and it's what people follow. Think of every leader who ever shaped history. Not one of them was known for what they wanted to do. They were known for what they did, no matter the cost. The people we remember, the ones who shaped empires, sparked revolutions, or built billion-dollar companies, all had one thing in common. They acted. Even when it was risky, even when it was unpopular, even when it meant standing alone. On the other side, people with great intentions but no action often become frustrated. They wonder why no one sees their value, why they're overlooked, why less good people seem to succeed. The answer is painful, but simple. Action speaks. Intention doesn't. In the power game, intentions are invisible. You don't get credit for planning to be great. No one's handing you respect for what you could have done. Influence is not a charity, it's earned. And the currency you pay with is action. Even imperfect action beats perfect inaction. Someone who moves forward and stumbles will always be ahead of someone who stood still, out of fear. Power respects the person who shows up, who takes the risk, who starts the fight, not the one who waits for the perfect moment that never comes. This mindset shift is especially important in today's world, where distractions, overthinking, and fear of judgment stop people from executing. Social media is flooded with quotes, dreams, and plans, but few real doers, those who consistently act, even if they're wrong at first, gain experience, they build resilience, they develop presence, and most importantly, they start to control the room, because the room begins to expect movement from them. People follow certainty, and certainty comes from doing. Every time you take action, you reinforce your identity as a person who leads, not waits. You create a feedback loop where confidence grows, momentum builds, and results start to appear. And once results show up, people start paying attention. That's when power starts to shift toward you. It doesn't mean you should act recklessly, but overthinking is just fear dressed as logic. The ones who win are those who take the leap. Assess the fall, then leap again, smarter each time. Intention without execution is a slow death. It's a life of regret, of what-ifs, of unspoken dreams buried under hesitation. When it comes to building power within yourself or in the world, remember this: you can have the kindest heart, the sharpest mind, or the greatest vision, but none of it matters unless you move. Because power doesn't respond to your plan. Morality in its purest form is meant to guide human behavior. It defines right from wrong, creates order from chaos, and binds communities with a shared code of conduct. But over time, morality has also become a tool, a system of ideas not only used to uplift society but also to control it. Specifically, it is often used to disarm those who rise too fast, shine too bright, or threaten the comfort of the collective. When someone becomes too ambitious, too confident, or too powerful. Society frequently responds not with admiration but with moral judgment. They are told they are arrogant, selfish, ruthless, not because they are doing wrong, but because they are stepping outside of what's comfortable for others. In this way, morality is no longer just a guide. It becomes a leash. It is used to pull strong individuals back into the herd. The irony is that the most powerful figures in history, the builders, the leaders, the innovators, were often deeply moral in their own sense, but not in the ways society approved of. They didn't conform to the popular definition of good. Instead, they operated on a different level. They judged themselves by results, impact, and truth, not by public approval. What society calls morality is often a social contract written by the weak, for the weak. It rewards obedience, not originality. It uplifts humility, but demonizes pride. It celebrates sacrifice, but shames dominance, strength. When visible becomes threatening, power, when unapologetic becomes wrong. And that's when morality is weaponized, not as a universal principle but as a psychological cage. You'll see it everywhere. In workplaces, when someone rises too fast and is suddenly labeled too much. In families, when a person dares to chase a dream and is told they've changed. In politics, when power is gained and suddenly the moral character of a leader is dissected, not always for truth, but to undermine influence. In each case, the moral critique isn't always rooted in ethics. It's rooted in fear of disruption. This tactic is subtle but effective, because no one wants to be seen as bad. And so the powerful often begin to apologize for their strength, to dull their edge, to shrink back into acceptability. And once that happens, they're no longer a threat. They've been neutralized not by force, but by guilt. This is not to say morality has no place. But when it's used to judge those who are simply willing to play the game harder, louder, or smarter, it stops being morality and becomes manipulation. It's a way of reinforcing the status quo. The strong are told to tone it down, to not be so confident, to play fair, even if fair means falling behind. And who benefits from this? Not the individual, not society, but the fragile egos that feel safer when everyone plays small. History is filled with moments where morality was used not to uplift, but to suppress. Think of revolutionaries called dangerous, visionaries labeled mad, leaders framed as tyrants simply because they refused to obey a system built to keep them silent. In those cases, morality wasn't the truth. It was the defense mechanism of a world afraid to change. This is why the strong must learn to see through the mask, to recognize when morality is being used as a compass, and when it's being used as a chain. They must learn to separate ethical truth from emotional comfort, because often those who preach morality the loudest are not protecting what's right. They're protecting what's familiar. Ruthlessness is a word that's often misunderstood. It's usually painted in dark colors, associated with cruelty, heartlessness, or a lack of compassion. But in reality, being ruthless doesn't have to mean being evil. In its truest form, ruthlessness is not about harming others. It's about clarity, the clarity to cut through noise, emotion, and indecision, to do what must be done. At its core, being ruthless is about alignment. It's when a person becomes so focused, so certain of their goal, that they are willing to remove everything that doesn't serve it. That includes distractions, false friendships, comfort, hesitation, and even outdated beliefs. This removal is often perceived by others as cold or harsh. But the one moving forward, it's simply necessary. Ruthlessness in this sense is precision. A ruthless person doesn't act out of spite. They act out of intention. Every move is calculated. Every decision is filtered through one question: does this move me closer to what I want? If the answer is no, they discard it without emotional conflict. It's not because they don't feel, it's because they've trained themselves to prioritize clarity over comfort. This is where the distinction becomes important. Cruelty is reactive. It's emotional. It seeks to hurt for the sake of hurting, often driven by insecurity or ego. Ruthlessness, on the other hand, is calm, strategic. It's about refusing to be swayed by guilt, fear, or societal expectations when they interfere with the mission. It's about having the strength to walk away, to say no, to enforce standards, even when others don't understand. Many people fail not because they lack talent or vision, but because they lack this clarity. They're too concerned with being liked, too afraid to draw hard lines, too unsure of their worth to say enough. As a result, they compromise. They settle. They move through life weighed down by indecision and diluted ambition. Ruthless people don't suffer from this. They cut clean, not to harm but to free themselves. Being ruthless means recognizing that time is limited, energy is finite, and potential is sacred. There's no room for maybes, for half-hearted effort, for waiting on others to approve. The ruthless understand that indecisiveness is a form of self-betrayal, that saying yes to the wrong things is just as damaging as saying no to the right ones. They don't confuse being nice with being effective. This mindset is uncomfortable to many, especially in cultures that prize politeness over power. We're taught to always explain ourselves, to avoid hurting feelings, to maintain harmony, even if it means stalling our progress. But progress is not always harmonious. Sometimes it's disruptive. Sometimes it requires hard choices and firm boundaries. And that's where ruthlessness becomes essential. It's also important to note that ruthlessness is most powerful when aimed inward. It's not just about how you deal with others. It's how you deal with yourself. Are you ruthless with your excuses, your bad habits, your comfort zone? Are you willing to confront your own weaknesses and remove what's holding you back? That's where true ruthlessness begins, not in dominating others, but in mastering yourself. Clarity is not about arrogance. It's about direction. It means knowing who you are, what you want, and what you won't tolerate. And that kind of self-respect can be threatening to people who haven't found it in themselves yet. That's why ruthless people are often misunderstood, but they don't let misunderstandings slow them down, because they know something most people don't. Focus is kindness to your future self, and clarity is the only way to get there. The idea that the world is or should be fair is comforting. It gives people a sense of justice, balance, and order. It tells us that if we work hard, follow the rules, and do the right thing, we will be rewarded. But the harsh truth is that the world doesn't operate on fairness. It operates on strategy, on advantage, on positioning. Fairness is a principle, strategy is a system, and the system is what shapes outcomes. The belief in fairness often leads to frustration. People wonder why they're overlooked despite working longer hours, why others get ahead despite bending the rules, why life seems to reward the bold and punish the patient. But that confusion only exists when you expect life to be equitable. The moment you let go of that belief, everything starts to make sense, because the world doesn't ask who deserves it. It asks who positioned themselves to take it. In every environment, career, politics, relationships, business, outcomes aren't distributed based on effort or goodness. They're shaped by leverage, influence, information, and timing. Those who win understand the playing field. They study it. They learn how to navigate it with precision. They don't waste time wishing the game was different. They learn how to play it better. This doesn't mean that effort, talent, or morality are useless. It means that those things alone aren't enough. You can be talented, but if no one knows you, you'll be overlooked. You can work hard, but if you're solving the wrong problem, your work won't matter. You can be honest, but if you lack awareness, people will manipulate you. That's not unfair. That's the result of poor strategy. Winners think differently. They don't ask what's fair. They ask what works. They look at systems, patterns, incentives. They think in terms of moves and counter-moves. They understand power dynamics, and they build influence instead of waiting for recognition. They use logic where others use emotion. They analyze results instead of relying on hope. And most importantly, they take accountability for outcomes, even when the game is rigged. Because even in a rigged game, the most strategic player can still win. They just do it differently. While others wait for the rules to change, they master the rules that exist. While others complain, they calculate, Strategy is about adaptation. It's about asking yourself not what should be true, but what is true, and then adjusting your approach accordingly. Some people are uncomfortable with this idea because it feels cynical. But it's not. It's liberating. When you stop expecting the world to be fair, you stop being disappointed by it. You stop being reactive. You become deliberate. You see how things really work, and you begin to move with purpose. You stop arguing with reality and start leveraging it. There's a certain peace that comes with understanding the strategic nature of life. You begin to accept that effort without aim is wasted. That energy without direction is noise. You begin to trade idealism for clarity, not because you've given up hope, but because you've chosen to compete in reality, not fantasy. This mindset isn't about cold calculation or manipulation. It's about effectiveness, about owning your path. It's what separates those who stay stuck from those who break through. Because while the world might not be fair, it does reward those who see clearly, those who move intelligently, those who don't wait for fairness to find them, but instead design outcomes through intention and strategy. Power is rarely something handed out freely. It's not granted to the most polite, the most qualified, or even the most deserving. It's taken deliberately, forcefully, and often without permission. Those who wait for someone to recognize their worth usually wait forever. The ones who rise are the ones who step forward, make the claim, and assume the position of authority long before it's offered to them. This principle operates in every layer of society. In business, leaders aren't chosen, they emerge. In politics, influence isn't requested, it's built. In personal dynamics, control isn't negotiated, it's asserted. This doesn't always mean aggression or domination, but it always means initiative. It means understanding that the structures around you respond to action, not to potential. Many people are conditioned to wait for approval, wait for opportunity, wait until they feel ready. But power doesn't respond to readiness, it responds to presence. The world gives very little without demand. If you don't claim your space, someone else will fill it. That's the nature of power. It abhors a vacuum. It will always flow to the bold, not the timid. This doesn't mean being reckless or disrespectful. It means being decisive. It means knowing that most systems are built to sustain themselves, not elevate outsiders. If you want to rise, you have to disrupt. You have to disturb the order long enough to make room for yourself. That's what it means to take power. You move into the space as if it's already yours, and then you back that confidence with competence, strategy, and relentless execution. Waiting to be given power is a form of submission. It's based on the false hope that someone above you will suddenly see your value and reward you accordingly. But in most real-world situations, no one is looking to give up control. Power must be earned through assertion, not through permission. That's why people who act with authority, who speak decisively, move confidently, and behave like leaders, tend to become leaders. Not because they were appointed, but because they assumed the role before anyone else did. Power also responds to perception. If you behave as if you're powerless, hesitant, uncertain, afraid, others will treat you that way. But if you project certainty, if you move with intention, if you refuse to be overlooked, people start to adjust around you. Influence is psychological before it is structural. Power is often a matter of who believes they deserve it and who convinces others to believe the same. The process of taking power also requires resilience, because those in power rarely step aside willingly. When you reach for more, you'll encounter resistance, criticism, doubt, even sabotage. That's part of the territory. Power attracts friction, and that friction filters out the ones who weren't serious to begin with. If you fold under pressure, the system reclaims its control. If you press forward anyway, you begin to shift the dynamics. Taking power is not about being unethical. It's about being unafraid. It's about refusing to shrink for the sake of harmony. It's about recognizing that the world isn't waiting to reward your patience. It rewards your persistence. The boldness to claim what you know you can handle, the focus to keep building even when no one's watching, and the strength to keep going when others want you to stop. The reality is that every position of power at some point, was taken. Someone decided they wouldn't wait anymore. Someone stood up and made themselves undeniable. Not because they were chosen, but because they chose themselves first. The truth is stark but freeing. The world doesn't hand you power, fairness, or permission. It rewards clarity, strategy, and bold action. Ruthlessness isn't cruelty. It's the discipline to cut through distraction. Morality, while important, is often twisted to shame strength. And waiting for life to be fair only delays your rise. Those who win aren't lucky. They're prepared, precise, and unafraid to claim what they know they can own. Power isn't something you're given. It's something you decide to take. The moment you stop asking and start moving with intent, the game begins to shift. And when it does, it shifts in your favor.